Let me hold your hand while I tell you the thing that nobody else in your life is telling you. What you felt was real. But girl, it wasn't love. Two things can be true at the same time. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist based in California, and I know the question you've been asking yourself, probably at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. Did they actually love me? Was any of it real, or was it all fake? I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what is actually true. Because clarity is not the opposite of comfort. Clarity is how you eventually get there. That feeling that you've been calling fake, there's a clinical name for it. It's called a trauma bond. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what that means, and more importantly, what it means for you. Before we go any further, it's important to remember, we cannot know what was happening for your partner. We cannot know with certainty what they felt, what they intended, or whether any of it was real for them. And that's okay, because that information will never set you free. Instead, you should be asking yourself, what did I feel? What did I know? What were my instincts telling me that I kept talking myself out of? You're the only person who's living in your experience, and your experience is valid data. Your instincts were speaking to you the entire time. Today, we're going to learn how to listen to them. A quick note though before we go any further. Everything I share is for educational purposes only. I'm a licensed therapist, but I'm not your therapist. If you are in crisis, please call or text 988, and that number will be listed in the description below. Okay, let's go. So what is healthy love? Before we answer the real question, I need to give you something you probably never got, a measuring stick. Because here's the truth. Most of us were never shown what healthy love actually looks like or feels like from the inside. We watched it modeled in our families, and honestly, for a lot of us, that was complicated at best. We learned from past relationships that taught us more about surviving than thriving. And somewhere along the way, we absorbed this idea from movies and culture that obsession is passion, jealousy means they care, and if it doesn't hurt a little bit, it's not real. So when the intensity arrived, when someone made us feel everything all at once, we called it love. Healthy love actually has three components. The first one is safety. Not just physical safety, also emotional safety. Here's a simple question. When you were with this person, did you feel calm? Or were you filtering what you said before you said it? Rehearsing conversations in your head? Carefully choosing your words so you didn't set something off? Because if you were doing that, your nervous system was not calm. And managing someone else's emotions is an impossible task. It's exhausting, and it's not your job. Think about the amount of mental and emotional energy that took every single day. Now think about what you could have been doing with that energy instead. That is not love keeping you careful. That is fear keeping you small. It was self-abandonment dressed up as devotion. The second component is consistency. This person shows up the same way, whether things are easy or hard, in public and in private, during conflict and during calm. Here is what inconsistency actually does to you. When you cannot predict which version of someone is going to walk through the door, your nervous system never gets to rest. You're always scanning, always reading the room, always adjusting. You cannot relax into something that feels like shifting sand under your feet. And here is the reframe that I need you to hear. Consistency is not a high bar. It's not asking too much. It is the absolute baseline for what love requires. You deserve to know what you're getting without bracing yourself for which version shows up today. The third component is mutuality. Both people's needs matter. Both people should make adjustments. And I want you to sit with this one for a second. When you are the one who is always reaching, always giving, always the one who apologizes first, there is a particular kind of lonely that comes with that. Because you are not just exhausted, you're invisible. Your needs, your feelings, your limits, consistently coming second. And somewhere along the way, you probably started to wonder if maybe you were just asking for too much. You weren't. Love is not a performance review where only one person is being evaluated. Both people are in it, or neither person is. Safety, consistency, mutuality. Write those down if you need to. Because if those three things feel completely foreign to what you have experienced, that is not a coincidence. That is information. And that information is power. So what is a trauma bond? Well, I'll tell you one thing. It sure isn't love. It's a survival attachment. And here's what that means in plain language. When a relationship cycles between tension and harm, and then relief or warmth, your brain treats that relief like a drug. The good moment after the bad one feels disproportionately intense. It feels more intense than consistent kindness ever does. Because your nervous system is wound so tight by the tension that when the relief finally comes, your system is flooded. When you've been walking through a storm and someone finally offers you shelter, that shelter feels like everything, even when they are the ones who create the storm. And over time, your brain locked onto this person as both the source of your pain and the only source of your relief. And that is a powerful attachment. It feels exactly like love. Sometimes it feels more intense than any love you have ever experienced. And that right there, that is where so many of us get lost. Because here is the line. Intensity is not love. The relationship that hurt you most is not the one that loved you most. It's the one that most completely took over your nervous system. And so many of us are vulnerable to this because from a very young age, we are taught to equate emotional intensity with depth of connection. What we are taught is that if it doesn't hurt a little, it's not real. And that is a lie worth unlearning. Your feelings were real, but your feelings can exist inside a dynamic that is destroying you. And here is the uncomfortable truth I promised you from the beginning. Some of what you called love was your nervous system desperately searching for safety in a place that was never safe. The moment you recognize and name this pattern is the moment it can start to lose its grip on you. So let's reflect on one simple question. Do you recognize yourself in what I've just described? Because that recognition, that moment of, oh my goodness, that is exactly what happened to me, that is where your power begins. Love or trauma bond? So how do you actually know the difference? Here are 6 markers. Difference 1, how your nervous system actually feels around them. You know that feeling of exhaling when someone leaves the room? That moment where your shoulders drop and you realize you've been holding your breath? If that happens when this person leaves and not when they arrive, your body's telling you something that your heart has not been ready to hear. Being with someone you love should feel like coming home, not like bracing for impact. Your nervous system always knows, even when you're not ready to listen to it. Difference 2, relief or joy. Think about the best moments in that relationship. Now ask yourself honestly, what were you actually feeling? Because joy and relief are not the same thing. Joy is the presence of something genuinely good. Relief is just the absence of pain. And when you've been in pain long enough, relief can feel so overwhelming that you can mistake it for happiness. You deserve actual joy, not just the absence of suffering. Which one was it mostly? Difference 3. Was love earned or given freely? In healthy love, affection just exists. It does not require a performance. But in a trauma bond, you're always managing something. Their mood, their reactions, the temperature of the room. And the exhausting part, the part that nobody talks about, is that the rules keep changing. What worked yesterday does not work today. So you keep adjusting, keep trying, keep shrinking yourself to fit a space that keeps getting smaller. If you spent more energy managing the relationship than actually living it, that was not love. That was survival. And you deserve so much more than that. Difference 4, more like yourself or less? Healthy love expands you. Trauma bonding shrinks you. And here's the part that I think is most painful. It doesn't happen all at once. A boundary is softened here. An opinion is swallowed there. A friendship quietly dropped because it was just easier. A piece of yourself set aside to keep the peace. And you probably told yourself you were just being flexible, being mature, being a good partner, until one day you looked up and barely recognized yourself. That was a slow and systematic erosion of the sense of self. Difference 5, resolution or cycles. Healthy relationships move through conflict. You have a disagreement, you work through it, something actually shifts. In a trauma-bonded relationship, you cycle through conflict, tension, rupture, relief, repeat. Same argument, different day, different trigger, same outcome. And the exhausting part, that you probably kept trying to find the magic combination of words that would finally make them understand. There was no magic combination because the issue was never the argument. The issue was the dynamic. And a dynamic only changes when both people decide to change. If that sounds familiar, that cycle was trying to tell you something. Difference 6. Did you feel free to leave? This one we probably should sit with because I know there's some shame there. You knew in some part of you for a long time, but you stayed anyway. And you've probably asked yourself hundreds of times, why could I not just leave? Here's why. In a trauma bond, leaving feels psychologically impossible. Not difficult, it feels impossible. The anxiety is overwhelming. The grief feels unsurvivable. There was a physical sensation of incompleteness, like leaving would actually break something inside of you. That is your nervous system being hijacked. The good news, neurological patterns can be changed. Now I want to address the question I know is sitting right underneath the surface. If it was a trauma bond, does that mean that none of it was real? That I was foolish? That I'm broken for feeling so deeply? No, absolutely not. Of course, all of your feelings are valid and completely real. And here's the distinction that changes everything. Real feelings inside an unhealthy dynamic are still real feelings. They're just misdirected. The capacity that you brought to that relationship, the depth of feeling, the commitment, the willingness to keep showing up even when it hurt, those are not flaws. Those are strengths. You loved deeply, and the world genuinely needs people who love in that way, deeply, committedly, with everything. It just needs you to aim that love at people and places that can actually hold it. Starting with yourself, because here is where you are right now. You have a measuring stick. Safety, consistency, mutuality. And you have 6 markers to recognize the difference between what you had and what you deserve. You understand why leaving felt impossible, which means that you can finally stop using that against yourself. That knowledge lives in you now, and nobody gave it to you. You earned it. If something in this video resonated, please feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. The first 2 videos in this series are linked below. Together, all 3 give you the complete picture. New videos every Thursday. One goal, clinical truth and real tools for your most empowered life. See you next time.